Hello?
Hey, yeah,
I'm here.
I should have told you in advance that I want you to wait like 2 minutes before you answer because the Skype sound is going to be our new theme song. So we need to let that run and then start talking to our clients. Okay.
The customers, paying
Yeah, our
customers.
customers. Actually, I had, I guess I made the comment about the noise of Skype starting up, and somebody wrote back and said, "I like that. It adds to the show." So I've been thinking about it. Anyways, well, hello and welcome to the live stream once again. Glad that y'all are back for some more. It means y'all liked the last show we did. And today I'm going to start by reading, I guess, the next bit of my new Melchizedek video script that I'm working on, which I have been working on every chance I get. And we'll start at what would be probably where we left off last time. And this is going to be talking about the war between God's kingdom and Satan's empire. Far from being any kind of rule book, the Bible is simply a written account of the war between creation and civilization, which could also be thought of as the war between God's kingdom and Satan's empire. Anyone putting their faith in Satan's governmental system, economic system, or religious system would not only be breaking God's 10 commandments, but by default would be doing the will of Satan, and hence breaking the first commandment to not worship other gods. The very first event to take place associated with this war occurred in chapter 3 of Genesis. After promising the first woman that she could be like a god, Eve entered into what is called a covenant, a two-way, legally binding agreement with Satan. Prior to entering into Satan's covenant, Adam and Eve lived in a paradise, but shortly after Eve convinced Adam to partake of the fruit, the couple was cast out, and God pronounced judgment on each of the participants in the rebellion. Since then, millions have participated in the very same satanic covenant. Many have done so in protest. However, to this day, the majority cannot resist the enticement of what the covenant promises. Self-rule, the false belief that individuals can benefit from converting our planet's resources into something that God never intended and then dividing the spoils according to some artificial hierarchical contest is so intoxicating to those who suffer from power addiction that they simply cannot resist. They, just like Eve, have fallen for the original deception spoken of at 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 14, which records that indeed Eve was deceived. That deception took place in the Garden of Eden when Satan and you yourself will be able to determine what is good and what is bad, just like the gods. When God pronounced sentence on Satan, Adam, and Eve, the predictions that he made eventually became the world that we find ourselves in today. The war between creation and civilization had begun. As described at Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, there will be animosity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will inflict injury upon your head, and you will inflict injury upon his heel. As dismal as our situation may seem, the account of the fall of mankind is not the only story told within the pages of the Bible. In fact, much of the Bible is dedicated to the promise of one day making things right, so that those of us who want nothing to do with civilization will not be forced to conform to its precepts. Okay, that's a good enough place to stop, I do believe.
Okay, starting off with hellos this week. Mishu carries the top spot today. Says hello and thanks, Henry. Synoptic Problems next. He says hi, y'all. Brewlock says hi, y'all. Kitchcool over from England says evening, guys. Thanks for the script. Guess he wasn't supposed to let the cat out of the bag that there's a script.
Yeah.
Marie's Vegetable Garden.
That's just for us insiders.
Yeah, Marie's Vegetable Garden says hello. Sleepy Girl 85 says, hey guys. Let's see. BMW guy says, hello all. I hope all are well, dry, and warm. I guess it is getting kind of wet, isn't it? Karen Bain says, hi, Henry. Hi, everyone. Let's get educated. Marshmallow says, hi, everyone. Sorry I missed last week. Super U68 says, hello. Been looking forward to meeting all day. And then he adds in that your audio, Henry, sounds great this week. Next is Teresa Smith, says, hello, all. Chester Richardson says, hi, I'm here, even though I'm late. Actually, you weren't that late, so right on time. Dale Rockwell says, hey, y'all. Let's see. A Chain of Hills says, good evening. Norman Lacey says, hi. Synoptic Problem says, the beard works great to hold the mic, apparently. So he also wonders, where's Uncle Nesta? So we haven't seen him, actually. Was he here last week? I wonder.
I think he was later. He didn't show up, but I do know that I heard from him on. He left a message. So.
Yeah, Mountain Truth agrees with the beard. It's also good for spaghetti sauce, but I don't see any spaghetti sauce on yours. Matt Wilcox says, I
eat gray spaghetti.
Actually, he comes up with a question. Shannon says, hi, yes, all. The Learning Homesteader says, evening, folks. Evening, Henry. And then Sleepy Girl also comments about the podcast. She says she likes those. Uncle Nesta's here. So he does say, blessings in Jesus' name. Prayers for my friend Mark, still not well. Maybe prayers for healing for Mark and an amen. Then he adds in a puff puff. Patricia Rubrick says, good evening. Simple Sister Living says, hi, y'all. Late, but I made it. And then that's it. So first question looks like it comes from, I don't know his name. It's looks like Mitbro 6, or maybe that's Mountain Bro 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bro 6.
That sounds familiar.
How do you say that?
MTN is Mountain.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And maybe it's question for you, Mr. Sustenance and Covering. He's a big fan. You might know me better as the violinist. You called me.
Yeah.
I came across 1 John 5:7 in an Amplified Bible, and it was written italicized. For there are three witnesses in heaven: the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit. At the bottom of the page, a note said the phrase doesn't exist in manuscripts prior to King James. But prior to the King James Version, it was never referenced or referred to by the early church fathers. What do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't exist. I did a little research into it, and they said that, I guess, some back in the day when the church was Latin, that there was some high-ranking cardinal that gave a public talk somewhere in front of a really big crowd, and he kind of quoted that part of the Bible, and he added that in. And I guess it just seemed like a good idea to go ahead and start putting it in the Bible. But there's a lot of stuff that's in the Bible like that, and none of it's really that damaging. If you think about it, here's the thing. I was a Jehovah's Witness for years, and I would go, knocking on doors, and people knew that, there's a few things that the people know about Jehovah's Witnesses. So they give you, like, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness and you're really religious, you'll have a little brochure that says how to handle Jehovah's Witnesses when they come to your door. And I guess people don't know we're aware of that. But it's like every door we'd go to, 1 John 5:7 says, there are three that bear witness in heaven. And I can't remember, was it the Word and the blood and the Spirit or something like that, or the Father, the Word, and the Spirit, or the Father, Word, and the Truth. Or it's a Trinitarian, obvious Trinitarian scripture. But and so a lot of the witnesses would say, well, that's not really in the Bible. That was just added to the King James. But I would just go in there and say, yeah, what does that mean? Because Does it say that God is God and Jesus is God and the Holy Spirit is God and all three are gods, but all three together are one God? See, all of the stuff that they would throw at me to prove to me that, and it's still the same way because I'm still not a Trinitarian. So I get comments like that all the time, and I'm just, so your whole faith is based on the fact that three words end up in the same paragraph? That doesn't mean anything, But it isn't in there. But it shouldn't bother you because it's not like life altering. There's just like the story of this guy's name was Erasmus, the guy that translated the Bible from Latin into English. Now his whole thing was that he translated the Bible from he compiled all of the Greek pieces of the Bible into one big Greek Bible. That's not what he did. I mean, it's very obvious. If you go look at all of the Greek texts that exist from that time, they're nothing like what Erasmus wrote. But if you look at all the Latin texts that the church was using, it's exactly identical. So what he did was the Catholic Church took the Greek Bible, they made a Latin Bible loosely based on that, and then Erasmus translated the Latin backwards into Greek again. And no one spoke Greek at the time, but church fathers or people that were honest people that kind of understood what was going on, they're like, this isn't real. And so Erasmus made a fake Greek manuscript, and that's what the King James Bible is based on. When he first made it, didn't go over very well, and so he had an opportunity later to go back and add and take things out that weren't quite cutting the mustard, and so he added quite a few verses, including that one, because that one's called the Comma Johanneum or Johanneum, which is like John's Gap or something like that in Latin or in whatever language. But they also the story of the woman being whipped or stoned, and Jesus said, "Whoever casteth, as not sinneth, letteth him casteth the first stone." Well, that story's not in the Bible either. That was just added by Erasmus, and it's one of a lot of things he put in there. He put in one verse where it says that people are going to go into the grave, and he said, "Where the fire never goes out and the worm never finishes eating." See, it's not even in there. He just added that, but none of that stuff really changes the overall message of the Bible. Say if you want a religion, you're pretty much going to have to go through and pick out all the verses that support what you say. But if you want to learn the truth, you can still do it with any. A King James Bible will teach you the truth. If you read it from start to finish, you'll see the stuff that stands out as odd. In general, it stands out as odd because it doesn't belong there. Is there any time left, or?
Yeah, really. I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to have a buzzer or something. Uncle Nesta has some good news. He says he had supernatural healing this week. He says his knee was healed, honest to God. He had reconstruction back in 93 and was told he'd need a replacement. He laid hands on his leg and prayed, and he can now use his leg like normal. And he has a video on his YouTube page.
I guess my special gift is being sustenance and covering because I can't heal anything. I've tried to cast out demons. I've tried to heal. It doesn't work for me. I get to make cool videos.
Matt Wilcox brings up that Eve was wholly seduced and made pregnant with the first Kenet.
Sounds about right. I don't know what a Kenet is. I'd call them a Nephilim, but maybe
no. It's something. I had to look that up, and apparently it's something to do with the Kenets were a nomadic clan in ancient Levant, I guess, and so it's an old tribe, I guess. Maybe it was like you're saying Nephilim.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe so, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people get accused of being Nephilim throughout the Bible. And a lot of people, look, there's a lot of things that happen in the Bible that seem to be about the relationship between the gods and the human females and their offspring. But I think, like the story of the flood, that's a real obvious example. It's like, okay, the flood, is about Noah and 3 sons who represent the 3 races of humans on the earth, and they go into this promised land, and in there, Noah actually has another child by Ham's wife, which kind of represents the Nephilim, but I don't think that that's saying that Noah was God, or Noah was Satan, or that this one illegitimate child was a Nephilim. But I think that the story's being told. The story of the Nephilim is being retold after the flood. The same thing with when Abraham went into the promised land. He went in with his nephew Lot. Lot's kind of like a representative of the Nephilim. And you see that over and over again. It's like the story of 2 brothers. Cain and Abel were 2 brothers. Well, later on you had all these Ephraim and Manasseh, and Abraham and his brother, Jacob and Esau, Isaac and Ishmael, and it's the same story over and over again. It's the same story with the twins, the constellation of twins, but it doesn't mean that they're the same individuals. It's just a retelling of the story. But what a Kenet is, I don't know.
And then he also kind of adds into that something about Matt Wilcox does all these sons are sons of Cain. All these children are sons of Cain.
Well, Cain's a good archetype of bad people. Bad people, demon-possessed people. Jesus called the Pharisees sons of vipers. Viper being the sons of the serpent. So I don't know that they were exactly the same as the Nephilim, but they were demon-possessed. So you see in the back story, Adam and Eve, and then Eve and Satan creating some kind of wicked offspring. I don't know the mechanics of that, like if it's a fleshly thing or a demon spirit entering into Eve. But that's what happened later. When Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, I don't think they were born of a virgin birth. I don't think the Pharisees' mamas were having sex with demons. But that's the way most world leaders are. They like Osiris, the first pharaoh, he was supposedly born of a virgin birth by a demon, and then Ahasuerus, Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great's really good example of that. If you read the history of Alexander the Great, his whole life's mission was to find out whether or not his father was Philip, or whether it was Satan or Osiris, or what was the name he used? Zeus. He thought maybe his dad was Zeus, because Philip, his supposed real father, on his honeymoon went in to make love to his wife, and she was in the bed with a huge python having sex with it, and so he never had sex with her after that, supposedly, and then Alexander was born. It actually sounds feasible, because that's the whole story of Alexander, just weird. Some kid conquering the planet. Give me a break. That's not very realistic.
Next comes from Synoptic Problem. He first says, "Y'all please pray for me. My voice and swallowing for his voice and swallowing problems." His question is: salvation is often likened to climbing a mountain. The mountain has various paths that lead to the top. Do you think all paths lead to God?
I think they're all part of the same system, but at the same time, if you look at what Jesus said, don't be stupid. There's a broad, well-paved road, and it's going off into destruction, but seek out the narrow and cramped way. And so obviously there's something about the choices we make that allow us to avoid the problems that humanity's about to suffer destruction. Civilization is about to suffer destruction, and so we have to break free from that in order to avoid that destruction. But even the ones that are involved in it, all the patriots and the rebels, after they're dead, it says there's going to be a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. So it's not like the only people that are going to get a reward are the ones that are on that narrow way. Everybody gets a reward, but obviously, those of us who get to live through Armageddon and never have to die and be in paradise is not going to be the same as those who end up dying at Armageddon and having to be resurrected, and not necessarily the same resurrection that we get, because the Bible talks about two resurrections, and one is superior to the other. Don't ask me how. I mean, I'll tell you how, but just be speculation.
Matt Wilcox goes back to the Canit thing. He says it comes from Canaanites, and it's a derivative of the name Cain.
Well, you know, there was two Canaans in the Bible. One, and they're not even spelled close to the same, but they both get translated as almost the same. I think it was Canaan, which was like the grandson of Adam, or great grandson, and then later on you get the Canaan that's a product of Noah and his daughter-in-law, and both of those, you know, what happens is that they're outsiders. Like the three families that entered the ark with Noah ended up being the three different branches of mankind, but the child that was born to Noah afterward, which was Canaan, ended up having to enter into the promised land with Shem, and then his ancestors all end up in this goofy war between the three families of man. They're like Nephilim, or maybe not even like the Nephilim, maybe like humanity, like us.
Okay, a couple more hellos. It's Skylark Amiris says hello, good evening. BC Truck Rebuild, Repair, Repurpose says hello, Henry. D. Vincent says made it. Hello, Henry and all. South Georgia Hydroponics says howdy, folks. Katie Cooks Craft says hello, all. And Douglas Aliff says hello, all, from Las Vegas. Next question comes from A Chain of Hills. Do you have any fun truth facts about the Bible that most people wouldn't know that you're willing to share?
I'll tell you what, it's like every time I make a video, it's like I want to stop every couple of minutes and share what I've discovered. Like I'm working on this Melchizedek video right now, and I've always kind of known that, well, there's a series of events in the Bible that are all supposedly unrelated. So after the flood, you have the Tower of Babel. People's language got confused. And eventually you have these people dying, right? So Noah dies, eventually Shem dies. And I've never ever put all that together, because it's just like so many begat this person, and at 30 years of age he lived on for another 400 years, and then he died, and then this one begat that one for so many years. So I've got this thing, and this is a very good reason for any good excuse for anybody wanting to that hasn't gone to the website yet. Right there on the front page for the time being is a chart of everyone from the first day of creation, Adam, all the way down to Jacob. So you go through Adam and all his kids, and then Noah comes along and there's a flood. And then after the flood, you have Noah and all of his kids, all the way down to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And something I've never understood, and it's a big deal, is that Abraham is told that he will always be a sojourner, what we would call an illegal alien, or a invader, because the word Hebrew, you know, he was called Abraham. He's the first person called a Hebrew, Abraham the Hebrew, and Hebrew means one from far away, one from a distant land. Well, when they went into the promised land, it's repeated over and over again that Abraham is kind of like an outsider, because he's part of someone else's tribe. Well, if you look at all of those dates of when these people were born and when they died, Abraham was alive when older men were alive. So his father was still alive when he was born, his grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, all the way back to his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, all still alive. And so basically he was not the manager of the promised land. He just lived there under his parents. But they never say that about Isaac and Jacob. And if you look at the dates, it's like all of the old people died, and all that was left was Isaac. So Isaac actually is never spoken of as like an illegal alien, and then his son Jacob never spoken of as an it's not so much that they're illegal aliens, it's that they are subservient members of the tribe. See, when they were young, they were members of Abraham's tribe. When Abraham died, then they became the chiefs of the tribe. And so I think by laying all that out, I was able to and the cool thing about it, this is a part of the Bible fact that I really was excited to share, is that I've always just accepted that all of the dates in the Bible match the dates that are presented by the churches, because there's so many churches. If one of them could find out the other one was lying, they would just talk about it. That would be, I was a Jehovah's Witness. If we found out that Catholics were teaching a lie, that we just love talking about that. And so it just didn't seem to me that all of the churches could be in on a lie. But Abraham is always said to have been born in 2008 AM. Like we have Anno Domini now. Back in the ancient times, it was Anno Mundi. The year 0 was the year Adam was born. Year 130 is the year Seth was born, and so on and so forth. Well, you get down to Abraham. Abraham was born in 2008, according to the churches. I got to looking at the verses. That's physically impossible. Abraham was born in 1948 AM, which puts him and Isaac and Jacob into that category I was just talking about. If Abraham had come in 2008, or if he had been born in 2008, then he would have never been considered a sojourner or an alien resident, because he would have been the oldest male member of his tribe when he entered. But getting that date correct allowed me to understand what that's all about. That's a big deal.
Next question comes from Uncle Nesta. He says, do you think that you might be too distracted and all consumed with the stars and the meaning of names of the planets and everything? He says he's consumed with praising Jesus and resting in him, and he doesn't need to know all the intimate details. He just rests. Amen. And then or is he off base? But you do know all your stuff you talk about, and you're awesome.
Yeah, people have asked me about that before. It's like, where do you learn all your information about the stars? So I really don't have. I mean, I was a kid. I had a telescope, But when I was in the Navy, I can remember talking to some of the navigators about navigating by the stars and just thinking, that's just so weird. How in the world can you do that? So always in my mind, I was working on that. But when you read the Bible and you see, like during the podcast today, that was the question, wasn't it? Someone was asking about what is the abomination that causes desolation. Well, it uses the word abomination. That's something disgusting that causes desolation. That's destruction. That's two words used in the Hebrew language, different words. But there are two other words that can be translated as abomination, desolation, and they're used in the Hebrew language. Well, when you get to the Greek, there are the same situation, abomination that causes desolation, but there are other words that can be abomination that causes desolation. So when you get to Revelation, we're told about what the keeper of the pit, or the god of the pit, the angel of the pit, and his name is Abaddon in Hebrew, but his name is Apollyon in Greek. And so, here we are. Everybody wants to know what the abomination that causes desolation is. Well, it's Apollyon. Apollyon in Greek is Mars in Latin, and then in Hebrew it was Abaddon, and then it's always like Baal, or I can't remember all the names of all of the Mars type gods. But so while the churches are sitting there saying they're going to sacrifice a pig on the altar of the Jews, well, that's not at all related. The abomination that causes desolation, Apollyon, the destroyer, in all ancient cultures is the planet Mars. And the fact that it's called the god of the pit, or the angel of the pit, is because the pit is always that lunar eclipse. When you can look at a planet, well, you look right now, you look at the moon during an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, and it's white, but it's got a dark circle in the middle of it. Kind of looks like a bowl. That's the bowls of wrath. But the Bible says that the moon will turn red as blood. Well, that can't happen unless the moon is Mars. And if Mars, or Apollyon, is the angel of the pit, then that means that Mars will actually go into a lunar eclipse. It will be red, and that will be the abomination that causes desolation. So while the entire planet of Christianity is, running around being washed in the blood and sanctified and born again and all that kind of stuff, shipping the Antichrist while they're doing that stuff, those of us who are familiar with that sign, when it happens, will know. We'll know that Mars, being an eclipse with our sun and moon, is the abomination that causes desolation, not, all the silly stuff that they'll be looking for. Now, another thing is, as above, so below. I think the reason that there's two different words used for abomination, two different words used for desolation, is because another abomination that causes desolation here on the earth is going to be the rebuilding of the temple. So we've had a temple, the temple of Hiram, and we had the temple of Darius, and then we had the temple of Herod. The next one will be the temple of Trump, or whatever that guy's nephew, or the next president, or the next one. It's going to be some world leader is going to fund the next temple, just like Herod funded the last one, and just like Darius funded the one before that, and just like Hiram funded the one before that. So when you see the Satanic temple up there on the Temple Mount, and you see Mars going into eclipse that close to the earth, then you'll know what it means. Everybody else won't know what it means. They'll be just going, wow, this Antichrist God he's really powerful. We need to worship him.
A Chain of Hill says, wow, thanks for your answer previously. Patricia Ribrick has the next question. They heard something this week about the beast system, and they had used the word ion in it. They're curious if it has a root meaning of the beast. Does this ion have anything to do with the beast?
I know I've seen the word ion in the Greek portion of the text. I don't know what it means right now. I mean, I know that like the word which means like root of Jesse, or the shoot of Jesse, that's scion, S-C-I-O-N. It's the same as our English word scion. It just is a piece of a limb or whatever you cut off and stick into some water to get rooted. Or I guess the scion, is a branch. But no, I don't know. I can't think right now. If it comes to me during our stream, I'll say something. But I can't remember what ion is. But it's all part of the beast system, I mean, anything that's science is just another religion. It ain't eating a special cookie made out of Jesus's body is about the same as making a machine that can tell you how old a rock is. Oh, I'm not in my picture. Let me adjust my camera.
Next question comes from Marie's Vegetable Garden. She says she's very intrigued with Melchizedek. Can we talk about that?
Sure, a little bit. I'm not going to go into. There's parts of it that I'm debating whether or not I even need to say anything, because this is I went ahead and I took the text tonight and I compared it to all the previous texts I've made, and then I got an idea. It's like 49 minutes. So it's a 49-minute video so far, and I'm only halfway through. And that's just the first part. I was intending, early on I knew it was going to be a two-part series. The second part is going to be the relationship between Melchizedek and Jesus, which would be another probably 45 minutes. But I may not even make that, because I'll just have to feel it out, see how people will react to the first part. But I could give you the whole thing and you would still watch it, I'm sure. But I don't want to say anything that will make people go, well, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. And then you got to wait 6 more weeks to find out that, in fact, it does make sense. But here's a thing that I don't know if I just read it off the script, but because I don't remember what I read, what the part was about. But Melchizedek is 2 words. It's not a name. His name was not Melchizedek. That was his title. It was 2 words. And we're told later in the book of Hebrews that those 2 words actually mean King of Righteousness. And he's King of Salem, King of Righteousness. Well, if you go back, what it's actually saying is he is, Hebrew is backwards from English in a lot of things. But the word that is translated as righteous is not the same as other words that are translated as righteous. And so I looked it up, and it's actually like proper, or that which is what it should be, is the definition that's given. So it's not righteous king, it's our King of Righteousness. It's the rightful king. So there was a war going on in the Promised Land, and these kings came in. We don't know. We know they came from Shinar, which is Babylon. But we don't know where they were going because their language ceased to exist. They left no written records because the guy's name is Chedorlaomer, which is an unknown language. And what were some of the other? There was 3 other words that were just not words that exist anymore. But they came into the Promised Land to kill the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and all those 5 cities that eventually got killed or got wiped out, by God. But Abraham, it's hard to believe, but Abraham went in and rescued Sodom and Gomorrah. And the only reason he did it is because Lot had been taken captive by the king of Sodom. And when this Chedorlaomer came in, he wanted to get them back. And so he went and captured Sodom. Well, Abraham comes along, and he goes to and captures or kills these guys. It says that he had victory over them or whatever, but the word that's used is like the word that's used for hacking up wood. So Abraham, he exterminated them is what he did. And he didn't just exterminate the kings. He exterminated the kings and all their soldiers with a force of like 350 guys. And Sodom and Gomorrah, the reason that they got destroyed by God is because Melchizedek, the true king, the rightful king of the Promised Land, was met with him. He brought wine and bread, and Abraham gave a tenth of everything he captured as tribute to Melchizedek. And kings of Sodom and Gomorrah say, hey, give us our people back. This is like, they're not your people. They're slaves. I've rescued these people. I'm not going to bring them back to you. But he did. And Melchizedek blessed Abraham. And Sodom and Gomorrah went back with Lot. And God rained sulfur and fire on them and killed them all. And so Lot still got away. But, where was I going with this? Abraham's name, in Hebrew means great father or illustrious father, something like that. And it is 2 Hebrew words, Ab, Ram, Abram. But after he enters the Promised Land and has a child, he's called Abraham. And so Ab is still father, but Rahim is that's not a Hebrew word. That's wiped out. That language doesn't exist anymore. Well, we think it means father of nations or fathers of the population. And, he got that position because he bowed to God's chosen king. And there's a verse in the Bible where we are told who God's chosen king is, and not in so many words, but in a very obvious way. And so Melchizedek kind of represents Jesus, but he was not Jesus in the flesh, but he represented him in that he is the one who was chosen through the family line. Remember the 10 Commandments say, honor your father and your mother. That's not really what it says. It says acknowledge or recognize the authority, the governmental authority of your mother and your father, because that's the only hierarchical system that God ever put in place. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, that's God's government. And so Melchizedek would be the oldest living male relative, and there's only been 2 times that the earth has had a acknowledged male ruler, and that was Adam at the creation of the earth, because he was everybody's father, and then Noah after the flood, because he was everybody's father. Well, what happened is Noah was killed, and when he was killed, all the languages of the earth were confused, because even today, the languages we have are Hamitic, Semitic, and Aryan, which means Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Japheth and Aryan are like the same word in 2 different languages. So, that's just a clue. But if you look at the dates of when everybody was born and when everybody died, it looks like Noah died on the same day that the languages were confused, because that's like a 100-year period that would have happened, and it just seems too coincidental. Do you want me to just keep rambling?
Okay, a couple more No. It was good stuff though, and I guess she wanted to hear something. So
yeah, that's a lot. That might be the whole thing. Was it in an hour?
Well, the scary part is that the script you sent out to me said it was only 1/4 of it, so I'm afraid to hear what the other 3/4 are.
Well, it's only 1/4 if you include the part that I may not put out there. It's actually over halfway for part 1, and part 1 may be the whole thing. I may not even do part 2.
Okay, some comments. Food and Water Music says, I'm wearing my favorite shirt today, elementary school dropout. Garo Merica says he made it. Chester Richardson says, I need prayers for my friend Eddie. And Marshmallow says, I am just so thankful for this group. We can all just openly talk about and discuss with each other. It's such a blessing in and of itself. And then Food and Music chimes in. Does everybody here know that this is the best channel on YouTube? A couple additional comments coming in about ion, the word. Patricia Ribrick says Legion has an ion in it, and it has a large amount of demons. And then Norman Lacey says an ion is a charged atomic particle, either positive or negative, based on whether it gains or loses an electron.
Yeah, that's in English. Legion is in Greek. And I think Legion actually is Legion. If you look at the Greek, it's like Legionos or Leganos, something like that. So it's basically the same word. Probably, if I looked that up. Like I say, it's not coming to me, and you can't. That's one of the things I've never been able to do is figure out how to look up words backwards, because you got to spell them right. If you go on Google and you type in Legion Bible verse, it'll take you there, and then you can click on that verse and get what the original Greek was. But if you go in there and you type in ion, it's going to take you to charged particle. It's not going to take you to... So you can even write in there ion, Greek word ion, and it'll take you to the modern Greek, which is not the same as, coin, what they call coin. So it's hard for me to look up things backwards. I've got these books over here that are in Greek, but I can't read Greek, so I have to take and look at each letter, and then... It's hard. It'd take me all day to look up one little word, because they're not like our alphabet. It's weird stuff like pi.
Next question comes from a chain of hills. They say, I have dreams of end times, but don't know if they're reflections of the future or just dreams from all my thinking. Wish I knew how to distinguish.
Yeah, I think dreams are real. I don't think dreams are like your subconscious mind imagining stuff, because everybody has the same story. You have dreams about stuff you've never seen, you've never watched on TV, you've never thought about seeing, and there's no reason for any of that to come into your head. The things that are coming into your head might be related to your real life, but they're not. So I think it's communication. I think dreams are just basically our contact with the spirit realm, and sometimes it comes across so confused that you just don't even have a clue what it means. Other times, you can have dreams, and I've talked to people that are just spiritually dead who have told me about dreams that are, I know they're not lying, and their dreams were about things that really happened, and, somebody on the other side of the country that was in their family got in a wreck, and they dreamed about a wreck, and so they woke up and called them and said, yeah, we just had a wreck. So that kind of stuff happens.
Marie's Vegetable Garden about the Melchizedek stuff says, love it, don't stop. But we moved on, I guess.
Yeah, we won't stop, but we are stopping for today.
Synoptic Problem says, Henry, I know you've been reading the Dhammapada. Jeez, I don't know how to pronounce that. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Dhammapada?
I got it up there. It's
okay.
It's a Buddhist. It's they got like a dozen different books they call Dhammapada, but I think there's one officially acknowledged one, and I think that's what I got. When I ordered that,
and thing, he says it says hatred.
Go ahead.
They made him what?
Oh, when I ordered
No.
When I ordered that book, it's like it came in 3 days later, and then 2 weeks later, I got this thing saying, we are so sorry your book is late. We're going to send it. And I said, no, I already got the book. And not only that, but I think what happened is they sent somebody else's book to me, because when I opened it, there was like 20 CDs in there for mumbling music, like, and I'm like, I didn't want that. I'm trying to get the knowledge. I'm not really I don't want something to meditate by. I just want to find out how you meditate and why, and, what's the big deal about this guy, the Buddha, because, I was curious about what comparisons could be made between him and other religions. So anyway, what's the question about the Dhammapada, or whatever it's called?
Well, it was more of a comment. It was more of a comment. He said that it says hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of wisdom in there. And in fact, it's not even like, there are people that say that the Bible is like plagiarism of the words of the Buddha. And then there's other people saying, no, the Buddha is plagiarism of the Bible. But these guys were thousands. This is like before Marco Polo hadn't come along. They were like the Native Americans over here. They had no way to communicate stuff to one another. It's like in the Bible, if you read, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, the Buddha says, don't do to others. It says the same thing, but in different words. And I remember I've been in several churches that have said, see how superior the Bible is to the Buddha? And I'm like, it's the same thing. Don't try to make a big deal out of this. It's worded a little bit different. It's the same exact concept.
Marie's Vegetable Garden, talking about the dreams, says her dreams make no sense. So
I tell you what, most of mine make no sense, but some of them are incredible logic beyond belief stuff.
Chester Richardson makes a comment. I'm not sure what this is in reference to, but he's quoting something that says, for now we see as through a glass darkly, but then all shall be made clear.
Yeah, that's the same thing as I think that's Buddhist, I think. But the Bible mirrors that as well. No pun intended, but it does. It talks about looking in a glass, a looking glass, and we're told that, like in the scripture, it says that a fool is like a man who looks into a mirror and he sees what he is, but then he walks away and forgets what kind of man he is. And I think if you look at that, it's like glass for looking through. It's not really the same as our concept of a mirror.
Let's see. A Chain of Hills brings up, I'm not sure how this came up in the chat, but he's talking about stocking up on Bibles for people that are unfamiliar with the Lord. And then Chester Richardson says he buys Bibles at the Dollar Tree to give to people who don't have one.
I got such a collection of, see that stack right there that's not on the shelf? those are, I think all of them are Bibles. There may be a couple of books in there that are not Bibles, but I think most of them are Bibles. It's because when I'm at Goodwill, I ain't interested in buying a Bible for anybody else, but if I see a Bible that I don't have, like a different kind of translation, I'll get it. And so the ones I know I've got the Good News. I know I've got a King James. I probably got, over the course of my life, I probably had 20 King James Bibles. I know, there's some that you just use all the time and you know that you got them, but every now and then you'll be there at Goodwill and there will be something you've never seen before, the American Revised Bible. And they're like, no, there's no way, So you buy it and you get it home, and they're only 99 cents. Get it home and there's an American Revised Bible on the shelf. And so, every now and then I'll go through my Bibles and I'll find, like if I find two of the same kind, I'll flip the pages, make sure everything's tight. Whichever one is the nicest Bible I keep, and then I donate the other one back to Goodwill. Actually, you can go to like Salvation Army. They got a box when you first walk in the store that says, free Bibles, take one. And I've gotten Bibles out of there before. And then bring them back.
Let's see. Synoptic Problem comes up with the next question. How do you know the voice of God? How do we discern whether it's God's or our own voice, or if it's Satan's voice?
Well, Satan is a god too. So if you're hearing the voice of God, you're hearing the voice of God. And if you're in that covenant Eve's in and it's your own voice, you're still listening to God. But I think the difference isn't going to be so much whether we can determine if we're listening to the right God or a righteous angel, or we're listening to Satan, or we're listening to ourselves. A person that loves God and wants creation to be restored and wants civilization to be done away with will be able to discern which is which. But the people that don't want that, they won't be able to discern it. If people, they want the world to be better, and the way they want it to be better is by getting the right politician in, or by adjusting the economic system, or by a strong military presence, or whatever way a person wants to fix the world. If they hear a voice that tells them to vote for Jones or vote for Smith, that's their God. If you can fall into that trap, then you're one of them. I think if you're here, probably chances are you're not going to fall for that. I don't go out too much. I try my best. Like I lose sleep. If I have a doctor's appointment, I lose sleep. Not over the appointment, over just driving. I don't even want to go out of my house. And so I don't have a whole lot of contact with people. And when I do, it's in passing, and it's very jovial and mild. And I try my best to not step over any boundaries when I'm interacting with people. But my brother's been down, and I love my brother very much. I had to go like the last 20 years. I never saw him, and he finally decided he could take off from work because he didn't have any pets anymore, and he didn't have anything to hold him back. And after a year, he's come back again. So I just spent 2 days with my brother, and most of that time it was me and my brother and my mom. And I love my mom very much. But their gods are telling them some of the stupidest junk. And, here's the thing. The Bible says don't try to use logic with people if they aren't logical, because you're just going to hurt their feelings. And that's what I find, because my mom and my brother both started talking about how North Korea starves all its people. Well, that's cool, because they're talking to one another. That's cool. I don't care. I'm going to stay away from that. And then my brother says, well, in that country, barbers are only allowed to have 3 pictures of 3 kind of haircuts, and that's all they're allowed. By law, they can go to jail if they don't give you the right haircut. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's propaganda, because we don't know. Every time they want to blow up a country, they say weapons of mass destruction, or they say unprovoked, cowardly attack, or there's always some kind of junk. And after the war's over, everybody goes, oh, that wasn't true. Oh, well, it was a good war anyway. And that's what we're heading for now. Is North Korea is about to be attacked by America. And when that happens, they want everybody on board. So the stuff that you're hearing, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that North Korea's leader isn't out of his mind. I mean, he's a politician. They're all out of their minds. But I probably will get over there and blow up 1 million kids and go into a barber shop, and there'll be a picture with 50 different possible haircuts you can get. And you know, the thing is that eventually Mom and my brother are trying to convince me of what a wonderful country we have by talking about how terrible North Korea is. And they said, you know, you would be in trouble in North Korea because the police go into people's houses, and if you have more food than you need for one day, they arrest you. And so I just had to say, look, you know, when you hear something that's absolutely ridiculous coming from the networks, and it seems to be steering you towards killing people that you don't know and can never possibly have contact with, just know that there's a good possibility that stuff isn't true. And my brother and my mom were so enraged that I would question, you know, the networks. You know, it's like, why would they tell us that if it isn't true? I'm like, maybe for the same reason they told us that the last guy had weapons of mass destruction. I don't know. But it just hurt me so bad to have to be in that environment, you know. And it would have hurt me just as bad even if it was people I didn't know. I just can't understand how someone can get to that point in their life where they hear this insane foolishness and they're willing to commit murder over it.
Food, and Water Music asks if you watched the North Korean statements at the UN General Assembly after Trump's Rocket Man speech.
I don't know anything about that.
I assume no.
It's like now, you know, when you see these old black and white movies of this psychopath Hitler, and he's like, I got a feeling that if somebody really spoke German and they were listening to that, he's like, we're going to improve the economy, and we're going to get everybody a job. You know, it's the same old junk they all say. You know, he may be more passionate, more animated, and it's the same thing at the UN General Assembly. You know, this guy is up there talking about how much he likes coming to America, and the interpreter's going, we will kill all of you, in your own blood you will drown. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't pay attention to anything coming from. I mean, you know, here's the deal. 99% of everything in the networks is lie, and only 98% of the internet is lie. So I stick to the internet. That was a funny joke. You should be
Synaptic
laughing.
Problem says as a. I got a lot of comments here. Uncle Nesta is praising. Uncle Nesta's praising everybody and blessing everybody, and I think he's mad that I'm not reading those all to you. So just so you're aware, he's running I think a healing clinic here in the chat room. So
hey,
let's see.
You can tell him I have given Ala Toledo strict orders to only pick the 1% of questions I can answer and to ignore everything else.
Well, anyways, let's see. Synaptic Problem says, as a prepper, what do you think of GMO foods and Monsanto? Are they bad for you?
Yeah, I don't, you know, if you go back and look in the Bible, humans were told to eat from the trees of life, and then they were told they could eat of any kind of vegetation containing seed, and, you know, we had 2,000 years of that, and finally God gave in and said, well, you know, if you want, you can eat meat. And then after that, we get to the part where he's telling people, do not biteth of the chewer of the cutteth unless he splits his hoof, and all that ridiculous stuff. And none of that was meant. You know, the only one that really counts is if you go all the way back to Adam, where he says, eat from the trees of life and the vegetation of the field. And everything after that is bad for you. You know, we're the only species. This is one of the things I like to say. We're the only species that has ever developed the ability to convert other species' food into food for us, because cooking is that was created when we got to the point where there was nothing left raw to eat. You know, there's people that still get away with it, but for the most part, you got to be really rich to eat a raw food diet, and then you still have to do all kinds of special tricks because you can't just eat lettuce every day; you'll eventually die. Yeah, GMOs are bad, but they're not. I mean, it's like when somebody gets on to me for using artificial sweeteners. I'm like, come on, how much worse can artificial sweetener be than corn? You know, corn is an anomaly. It doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. If you don't plant it, it dies. All corn, I don't know if you know that or not, but if everybody stopped planting corn today, within like 3 years, corn would be completely extinct. Doesn't exist in nature.
Change the subject. Skylark Amaris says, I was medically dead and was brought back to life. This happened years ago, but I was left with knowing what people are all about. I can't be around people because of this. Can you tell me why?
I can tell you this. I know what people's all about, but it ain't because of any kind of anything in my mind, because I don't care who comes up to me and how much of an obvious crook they are. I have to physically say that's a crook, because I automatically want to believe that no one on earth can lie and that everybody has my best interest at heart, because I don't lie and I have everybody's best interest at heart. But if that happened to you and you really believe it, it's probably true, and just count it as a blessing. Even though, because when I go to town, it's difficult for me to be around people because I don't know. I'm scared to death of people because I don't know what they're planning on doing to me. At least you can know in advance what they're planning on doing to you, and, because not everybody is going to be like that. I mean, everybody's evil, but a lot of them are evil in ways that are kind of not non-harmful. They do weird stuff that doesn't make any sense, but nobody gets hurt. I'm cool with that. Heroin addict, as long as they're just addicted to heroin, that's cool, but usually they're addicted to stealing your stuff to buy heroin.
Mishu wants to know, why did God okay meat eating?
I don't know. It doesn't give us those details. I mean, there's speculation, but I'd just be repeating the things I've learned in church. After the flood, I know that after the flood, that our ecosystem was damaged in ways that it never recovered from. When they say that they put all the animals in the ark, that doesn't mean they put all of the animals that ever lived on the ark. It doesn't even mean they put all of the species on the ark, because once the ice shield fell down, I'm sure that most of those species would not have survived. And so if you think about the millions of things that apparently went extinct on that day, because a lot of the fossils we find are results of the flood, and they're fossils of things that no longer live. You've got to also know that the plants probably went extinct as well. They say that the fossil record, that 99% of what's in the fossil record is no longer alive on the earth. So everything like monkeys, they're in the fossil record. People, they're in the fossil record. Apples, bananas, oranges, they're all in the fossil record because they fossilized too. A lot of people think only dinosaurs turned to fossils because those are ancient animals, but the modern animals, but that's not true. Everything that's alive on the earth exists in the fossil record, but 99% of the fossil record is of things that do not exist anymore. That includes plants and animals. What I'm saying is that our diet would have been reduced. What we had available would have been gone.
Okay, last question for the evening, and then you can take us out. Brewlock is asking about, I guess, Raybird, and I guess that's your brother, I guess, and
yeah,
you
Raybird.
mentioned him, and yeah, so wants to know if you're making another Raybird video, or have you made another Raybird video? Then go ahead and take us out.
My brother, okay, that video got like 10 times more views than anything else on my wife's channel. But I think the reason it got that is because my brother was showing it at work every day. and plus the people he worked with were going off and showing it to their friends. And he really was on board for doing that again. And I was on board for doing it. I had all my camera. I was already set up for it and ready to do it. And I guess we just got so involved in talking and joking and laughing and having a good time that it was dark and it was time to go before. We just never got around to it. So, no, there won't be another Raybird video this time around. But I'm sure that my brother's disappointed in that. And next time that he comes, we'll have to do something. I might even do it over there with my mom, although that would squelch things. A lot of stuff me and my brother talk about are stuff, we like to talk about without her around. Because I'm old, but my mama's still my mama, I can't. That's one of the things about it. My brother's around. It's like I kind of am a semi-citizen when I'm with my mom, but when my brother's here, it's like the F word comes out every sentence. I went out this time around, and I swore I wasn't going to use any vulgarity around my mom. And Mom said, let's go visit this person. And just happened that while we were there, this old man I went to church with when I was 6 was there. And in the middle of the conversation, I dropped an F-bomb. And it was like right in front of my mom. And I was like, so anyways, yeah, me and my brother got to do something again. Anyways, hope everybody enjoyed the show today, the information, and that you're all chomping at the bit to hear more about Melchizedek. I'm really, really excited about it. And since I'm not working on the book, every week I'll be reading excerpts from the Melchizedek script. And we'll eventually get that posted. But in the meantime, please come back next week. Please visit the website, listen to the podcast. If you're really interested in Melchizedek, probably a really good idea right now would be to go look at the chart of who all was in the Promised Land when Abraham met Melchizedek, so you can figure out who Melchizedek was, but also when people started dying off and why, because that's what's got this whole thing going, really. But anyways, we will see y'all next week, same time. And as always, if you don't want to survive, don't